Welcome back. I'm so happy you're here. And today we're going to talk about the benefits of hiring a coach. Whether you hire me as your coach or someone else as your coach, that's not the point. The point today is, what are the benefits, the tangible and intangible benefits of having a coach? And the reason why I want to focus on this is that I often get that question, like, what does a coach do? How does a coach help? Why should I hire a coach? Like, all of those types of curiosity-based questions are, I get them all the time. So I thought today we would just demystify this. And I'm going to do it from a couple of different perspectives. The first being a coach myself and having coached hundreds of different people. What does it look like to have to be coached from that perspective, and the benefits that you can gain from it? And then also from the perspective of me having had my own coach for the last, I lost track of time, 5 or 6 years. And so I want to give you kind of that well-rounded perspective so that you can really understand what a coach does and how they can help you. And I will tell you, this is coming from someone who, up until, the point at which I hired my first coach, where I was kind of at a very low point in my professional career, really not sure what I wanted to do next. At that point, before that, I was so adamantly opposed to asking for help. I would never ask for help. I would always try to figure it out on my own. I would never want anyone to see the crack in my armor. I would never want anyone to know that I felt insecure or had self-doubt. Like, there was never a point at which I would ever be open to talking about where I might not feel confident with any other human being. And so to go from that point to now 100, really a 180. Yet I always have had a coach for, since I hired that very first one. I've never been without a coach. Sometimes I have more than one, maybe one on a personal side, maybe like a weight loss coach, and one on a professional side, like a business coach, whatever it might be. I'm constantly leveraging coaches because I know how much more progress and both progress, momentum, and fulfillment I've been able to create as a result of it. So that's what our topic is today. I'm so excited to share this with you. I'm going to give you very tangible examples and stories so that we can really bring this to life for you. And you can decide if it's something that you think would benefit you as well. So with that, before we dive in, I want to recommend that you go and sign up for an independent consultant, an IC Success Blueprint session with me. And you can go get all the details on the IC-Blueprint page. The link will be in the show notes. But these are sessions have been going really where I dive in with a client, give them an initial assessment to figure out where they're at in their business. And then we really dive in based on that assessment to figure out what their roadmap should be against their overall goal and what obstacles they're going to hit and how to overcome those. So go check that out. It's on ic-blueprint.com. Okay, with that, let's dive in. So today we're going to talk about those 5 benefits of having a coach, which is really another way to look at it, is a second set of eyes on you and on your business. And I'm going to give you those examples and the stories so that we can make this really tangible and relatable. Let's dive into number one. The number one benefit of having a coach is to avoid those costly mistakes. The coach can help you see and avoid those unexpected blind spots that they know will most likely happen for you based on where you're at, or that they could happen for you based on where you're at, and help you avoid those costly mistakes. So I'll give you a few examples, and then we'll talk about a story that relates to this. So the examples would be, you might not be billing for work that you're doing. You might be justifying that as a cost of doing business, when in fact you actually could be billing for that work, such as scoping work, for example. You're avoiding it because you are avoiding difficult conversations or don't want pushback. Like another example would be if you went over, you're reaching the limit of the budget. And rather than having a conversation about extending the budget, you're just eating the costs because you feel like you made a mistake by not estimating it correctly or whatever the reason might be, right? You might be undercharging. You might be missing opportunities that are out there that are literally right there in front of your face, but you're too close to the problem to see them. And then I'll give you a slight example of that here in a minute. And then also another example of this is that you could be making changes to your business without really fully fleshing out your reasons and potentially setting yourself back for, 6 months, 9 months, a year. I've seen that happen. So we want to make sure that you're at a place where you're able to best avoid the costly mistakes. This isn't a foolproof process, right? You're not going to ever completely avoid costly mistakes. Otherwise, you're probably just playing really too small. However, with that being said, you can leverage an expert like a coach to help you avoid the mistakes that are so common that you're not seeing, because it's like they say, if you're inside the jar, you can't see the label. Right. And so that's what a coach can help you do, is really to avoid those costly mistakes. So I'll give you an example, a story about this. I had a client who was selling consulting services and really getting into a rhythm. She had a business that many of us would dream of having, right? A very clear service offering, a very dialed in business development process. So she knew exactly how to keep her pipeline filled and her close rates and how long it took to from start to finish to land a deal on average. Kind of all that was in really well dialed in and a well-oiled machine. She kind of had that queue of client work. And so she was at the point where she was considering adding another service to what she was doing. She wanted to add another service offering. And so on the surface, as we started looking at this, it seemed reasonable, right? She had all of this other stuff. She was wanting to make a change or an addition to her business. And it wasn't from the place of trying to, pivot because something wasn't working. It was actually from the place of, this is working. I want to expand my business. And so, like I said, on the surface, it seemed very reasonable. But as we dug in to really understanding why she wanted to do this, what her drivers were, what her logic was, what her reasoning was, what her mindset was, we figured out the actual reason why she was doing this, wanting to add this additional service, is because she was basically chasing other people. She saw other consultants and the businesses they had, and she was wanting to kind of keep up with them, like keep up with the Joneses. She had a kind of a fear of missing out on what they were doing, or just felt like she had to keep up with them, that they and somehow were ahead of her and she needed to keep up with them. And so if we had just gone off based on what she saw on the surface, she may have misdirected her business for, 6 or 9 months, chasing something that in actuality, she realized she didn't really want to pursue. She was pursuing it for reasons that she definitely didn't like once we uncovered those. And so alternatively, what she did was abandon that plan, put it on ice. Maybe she'll come back to it at some point for different reasons. We put that on ice, and she realized that she had some very low hanging fruit that she could pursue to expand her business, to expand her revenue. And so those opportunities are what she focused on instead. And so we avoided that costly mistake of her derailing her business, getting distracted, pursuing something because she felt like it was the next thing that she should do as part of her business, versus taking advantage of that low-hanging fruit that was a much better fit for her and what she is trying to create overall. So that's a really good example of helping a client to avoid costly mistakes. And that's something that, having that sounding board is so valuable, because you can really dig into the reasons why you're doing it and uncover those before you go down a path that might not lead to the result that you're looking for. Okay, let's talk about the second benefit of hiring a coach. The second benefit is that ultimately a coach, if you hire one that really fits well with what you're doing, can help you increase your bottom line. So let me give you some examples of this. You might not have a reserve right now, a reserve in your business. And so that puts you in kind of a precarious decision-making situation where you're settling or constantly settling or taking work that you might not necessarily want to take because or that doesn't pay you what it should because you feel like you have to. You're in a situation from a cash flow perspective that you have to. Another way that a coach can help you increase your bottom line is where you are not necessarily thinking about things from a revenue perspective versus a profit perspective, and really questioning and digging into the way that you're building up your proposals and your cost models. A coach can help you strategically raise your rates for existing clients as well as for new business. A coach can help you move from hourly based work to value-based pricing so that you're not tied to how many hours that you work. A coach can help you see where you might feel like you need to do everything in your business. I know I've been in this situation. I know I can do it. I can edit videos. I've taught myself a lot of this stuff, right? You probably have too. Doesn't necessarily mean you should be doing it. And so a coach can help you figure out where you could be hiring people to do that lower value work. The work that's more repeatable, someone else is an expert in it, and free you up to do the higher value work. Even if it's not billable, like business development, you're freeing yourself up to do business development work that pays off in the long run. So those are some examples of how a coach can help you to see situations that you might not recognize yourself or that you might be avoiding in order to increase your bottom line. So I'll give you an example of this one. Which basically was a client who felt like they had to take on work. They were being offered work and felt like they had to take it on. They felt like they were stuck between a rock and a hard place. They had had several months without income, without any consulting revenue, and felt like this opportunity, they had to take the bird in the hand, right? So it was about 25 or 30% below what their typical rate was, but they needed that cash flow. And so initially that client was going to agree to a 6-month kind of full-time contract and by full-time, that means like 50 or 60 hours a week, right? And so it looked fairly attractive. It's like, okay, on the surface, that client was thinking, well, I can solve my cash flow issue. I can get, some work under my belt. I'll figure out a way to do my business development somehow. I don't know where the time would have fit. And then we'll do better next time. So many of us think that, right? I'll fix this next time. I'll do better next time. I'm not going to get myself into this situation next time. But when you're signing up for a 6-month full-time contract where you're paid hourly, so you're incentivized to work more because you get paid by the hour, and they think you're okay with working more because you're getting paid by the hour, then you're setting yourself, she would have been setting herself up for a really difficult situation to move into the business model that she really wanted, which was, having some balance between work delivery and business development and not getting paid by the hour. So it wasn't this, internal personal conflict as well as, incentivizing the client in the wrong way. And so I won't say wrong way, a suboptimal way. So what we ended up doing for her is just, we did a lot of modeling it out, and we realized that she could negotiate a slightly higher rate, which she did. And then she could also tell them she was only working up to 30 hours a week to set that boundary. And then she, and we leveraged both of those two things together, created a little bit of scarcity, right? You need to leverage me and what I do in 30 hours a week. And I'm valuable. I'm worth more than what you would charge, what you're putting out in this marketplace, for example. And so that was the conversation that she had in a nutshell. And she was able to land that contract. So she had the cash flow. and then continue work. So that left her space 10 or 20 hours a week to work on business development. And within 3 weeks, I think it was, she landed a $180K contract. And that would never have happened. Well, I won't say never. It would be very unlikely to have happened had she not taken a step back, not agreed to what a client was initially offering to her, and really thought about what she was trying to create in her business, created a hybrid solution that she offered to that client, and was able to meet both her cash flow goals and her goals of keeping that space available for business development. So that's a great example of how working with a coach can help you increase your bottom line. The third area or third benefit that I've seen, both, being a coach and also always having a coach, is the benefit of increased fulfillment. It's really hard to put a price on this, right? For so many of us, if we're just leaving ourselves to our own devices, we're in a place where we're constantly feeling stressed and overwhelmed and doubting whether is this thing going to work or not, as a roller coaster. And a coach can help you get to the place where you're feeling more fulfilled. Doesn't mean that you're going to get rid of self-doubt or worry or stress. I would never tell you that. Having worked with so many clients and with my own coaches, that never goes away. It's part of kind of the human condition, right? But at the same time, the ability to override that stress and worry, the ability to replace it with peace of mind and fulfillment and feeling valued, and the ability to disrupt that so it doesn't take days on end. It takes maybe minutes or hours versus days on end of feeling stressed and worried. When you can truncate all of that down and feel so much more in control of your emotions, that to me has been one of the biggest impacts of having coaches, not only on my business and my professional life, but also in my personal life. Having control of your emotions is invaluable. As a mom of 3 and a wife of an Army reservist and also an entrepreneur, like there's a lot of emotional management going on over here, as I'm sure there is for you too. So this is such a value of having a coach, one that has a really good background in mindset coaching, particularly. So I'll give you an example here of how a coach can help you feel more fulfilled and in control versus stressed and worried and overwhelmed. I'll give you an example of a client who came to me with a lot of I will use the word riddled with self-doubt and worry. They hadn't had a client in, I think it was probably 6 months or so. They left the last client in a suboptimal situation. The client wasn't happy. And so they just had so much self-doubt going on about whether or not they could work, be successful on another client, and if they even landed one. If they were worried about landing a client, and if they got it, would they be successful? And so as we dug into this, at a high level, that client looked really good on paper. All of this stuff that I'm telling you, didn't come through on their LinkedIn profile by any stretch of the imagination. And really before this dry spell, they had clients most of the time. But that second guessing and doubting just kept elongating this dry spell further and further, and made it really hard for that person to keep moving forward and to get out of the ditch and to be able to, successfully sell business and feel really confident in delivering the business. And so, as you can imagine, the fix to this challenge of feeling like an imposter, feeling that incredible amount of self-doubt, the fix isn't to go land a new client, because you have to feel the confidence before you land the client, right? And so that's where we really dug in, is to help that client really learn and develop a strong and solid sense of self-confidence, and how to create it without anything else changing in their life, where all those circumstances were still the same, right? they still were in a dry spell. They still had a bad last experience with their past client that they were, kicking themselves over. And so we weren't able to change any of that. But what we were able to change was the lens at which they were approaching their business development and the way that they were looking at themselves. And that's where being able to shift into self-confidence whenever you need it is incredibly valuable. To be able to shift into peace of mind whenever you need it, incredibly valuable. The ability to shift into feeling in control and fulfilled and valued without needing anything external to you changing is incredibly valuable. And I'm not talking here about putting lipstick on a pig, right? I'm not talking about I've been there. I've had coaches trying to make me think positively. It doesn't work. It's not believable. It actually makes the problem even worse, because now you're not only feeling stressed and overwhelmed and insecure, but now you're feeling incapable of even getting out of this ditch. And someone's trying to tell you to just think positively. That's not going to work. But what does work is really understanding how the brain works and how to generate that confidence and sense of fulfillment in a way that is realistic and practical, and that you can believe yourself. That's the benefit of having a coach, to get you out of the ditch when you're in the ditch, to get you out of the overwhelm when you're in the overwhelm, to get you out of the stress when you're in the stress, and to teach you those tools to do it for yourself. And to continuously build that muscle so that you're able to function at a really high level as a business owner and be fulfilled and have the peace of mind, and that you've created it for yourself. Okay, I love that one. So hopefully it came through. Okay, number 4, another benefit of having a coach is to help you to increase your client impact. So this isn't just about you and your business and meeting your business goals, although those are incredibly important. But it's also how do you deliver at a higher level with your own clients? And so I'll give you some examples of this. There are a lot of areas where I see people overcomplicating things as they deliver them to their client. I'll give you an example of that here in a moment. So you're giving a lot of things to the client, but it's not necessarily things that they see as valuable. So being able to really align what you're delivering to the client with what they value can be incredibly important, and a little bit difficult to see when you're kind of in the weeds. The other thing that is really helpful from a coaching perspective is to be able to look at that, what we call the client journey, objectively from beginning to end with a client. What does it look like for you to first engage with someone, that may be a client or may refer someone to you or may be a good partner for you? By partner, I mean someone who gives you helps you get an audience for the message that you've got, the type of problem that you solve. And then what does it look like to walk through from step by step to get them to agree to a first call with you? And how do you manage that call? And then how do you get them to agree to another call, and ultimately to co-designing a solution together, and then to signing a contract with them, and then to onboarding them into your system, and then to delivering the work, and then ultimately the offboarding process, really looking at that objectively from an external lens versus being in the middle of it, can help you increase your client impact so much, because you're working through each one of those steps so carefully, methodically, to get it where you dialed in to where you want it to be. Another great place that a coach can help you increase your client impact is helping you to see areas where you can productize what you're doing, where potentially you're kind of handcrafting things over and over again, and helping you to see where there's commonality, common threads across what it is that you're doing, so that you're ultimately able to productize, create repeatable frameworks, create repeatable methodologies, and ultimately start becoming known for what you do, and sought after for what you do. And then the next area so those are a few examples of how you could make and increase your client impact, especially through working with a coach. Let me give you an example of this. So I had a client who was overwhelmed. I'll just put it that way. Overwhelmed, so much on their plate, so much work getting done, always feeling behind, never feeling like they were able to, really give the attention that they wanted to give to their client and to their business development process and to the, the subcontractors they had working with them. All just felt really pulled in so many different directions. And so we started looking at their business and that client journey I was describing to you. And one of the quickest areas, the lowest hanging fruit that stood out to us as we were diving into each of these steps was the amount of time and energy and deliverables they were producing around just summaries and reports and presentations. And it was a lot of work to create this, these weekly status reports and these executive presentations and these executive summaries and these case studies and, all of this work that that they thought the client really wanted and that they felt like really best communicated the value that they were providing to that client. And substantiating the billings and the amount of money they were spending for this for my client. And so as we dug into this, and then at the same time, my client was just dreading this work. Wasn't part of the overall, deliverables they were and the ultimate value they were trying to produce for their client. It was, what we all work on in some level or another, the communication, the strategy process and that sort of thing. But it was a lot of overhead. So we took a step back and we said, okay, this is a lot of work. And you hate it. My client did not like it. And we're not even sure if their end client, my client's client, is even looking at it. So let's just take a step